Thank you for all the inspiring presentations and the lecture. Maybe just to position myself, as Maya mentioned, I'm currently employed as a young researcher and I'm in the process of shaping my doctoral research. I'm very interested on the intersection of feminist theories, environmental humanities and performing arts. And I'm planning to conduct a doctoral research on feminist and environmental imaginaries in performances from socialist Yugoslavia. So currently my research centers on the artistic practices of 3 female authors from socialist Yugoslavia, and one of them is Bogdanka Poznanović, about whose work I will speak today. So these are the very beginnings, so bear with me. Up till now, the main 3 sources through which I'm trying to understand her work are Sanja Kolić-Mladenov's book Bogdanka Poznanović, Contact Art, Miško Šuvaković's book Bogdanka i Dejan Poznanović, Umetnost, medija, aktivizam na kraju moderne, and the interview with Poznanović by Zorana Šijački, published in the book Vojvođanke 1917 do 1931, životne priče. In today's presentation, I will explore 2 actions by Poznanović that she made with the Danube River in 1971 and 1972. I will focus on the strategy of collaborating with water with an aim to connect it with Eva Majewska's concept of the weak avant-garde that she offers as a concept to deconstruct the hegemonic and masculine ideas of the art. This concept of the weak avant-garde shifts the focus towards form of resistance that emerge from marginality and allows for reinterpretation of the avant-garde tradition. Thinking the 2 selected works and the decision to employ the river within the framework of weakness as a method will allow me to focus on the feminist environmental potentials of this engagement, on the networking potentials of these works, and underline Poznanović's work as a resistance to traditional and heroic modes of power and visibility in art. As we live through the 6th mass extinction, with many of the issues arising from extractive practices being related to water, I believe this presents an important aspect for exploring the artworks from the past as inspirations and teachers for our present struggles. In what follows, I will first introduce Poznanović and provide an overview of her 2 actions. I will then focus on the way she worked with the river and her aims to foster connections. Finally, I will attempt to articulate this as one of the possible strategies of the weak avant-garde. These are for now only the beginnings that I believe can lead to the exciting path for researching new avant-garde artistic practices. Poznanović's biography gathers a very wide range of artistic expressions, cultural activities and engagements. Born in 1930 and passing away in 2013, she began her path in the arts and culture by studying painting at the Belgrade Academy of Arts. The early years of her career, up until the late 1960s, were focused on experimental painting. Afterwards, she continued with what De Negri famously termed new art practice. She was among the first in socialist Yugoslavia to engage with male art, artistic interventions in public spaces, and artist books. As Šuvaković observes, Poznanović was the first artist from the new avant-garde and conceptual art scene to be employed as a professor at the Academy for Visual Arts in Novi Sad in 1975. As a teacher and professor at the Novi Sad Academy of Arts, she established the first course in Yugoslavia dedicated to new media. As an art critic and writer, she was one of the founders and editorial board members of Tribina Mladih and Polja, where she regularly wrote and reported on contemporary art. Together with her husband, Dejan Poznanović, she co-founded Atelier DT20, one of the key spaces for local and international artistic exchanges. Most of her life she lived in Novi Sad, but her visits and exchanges in Italy, in Venice, Ferrara and Bologna played a very important role for her views on art. So, on the 11th of November 1971, a 41-year-old Poznanović, at that time employed as a professor of painting with technology on the Department of Fine Arts at the Higher Pedagogical School in Novi Sad, makes her 2nd action. In Cubes Rivers, that's the title of the action, she stands together with her friend and students on the shore of the Danube River in Novi Sad in Vojvodina. She prepared 17 styrofoam cubes, each inscribed with another Yugoslav river, and placed them on the Danube shore in a pyramid-like structure. The audience was invited to get the cubes and put them into the water. Soon all of them are floating. They are left to the New Zone Agency, to the path wherever it will take them. This action was also documented with a video produced by the help of Želimir Žilnik and Dušan Minkov, and it will be soon shown as a video in Buenos Aires. 7 months later, on June 29th in 1972, she performs a similar action, this time titled Reverse Transmissions, using frames and foils with the names of Yugoslav rivers. Exactly a month later, she will perform it at another body of water, Geneva Lake. These two actions were not well received in the local environment. Already after her first action, that was titled Hard Object and happened in 1970, the daily newspaper reported that the contagion started, and the mad reactions, especially from her colleagues and from her boss at the school, got stronger for these two works. So, as we could see, Bogdanka Poznanović was one of the crucial figures in the field of arts and culture in Novi Sad and abroad, and she did hold an influential status. She was active through multiple roles to create, educate, inform, think publicly, and connect people. Despite all that, her work has been under-researched, as Sanja Kojic points out in the book Bogdanka Poznanović, Contact Art, and also makes her book, and this is an important contribution to this under-researched area. She points to her gender and the diversity of her activities as the main reasons for the lack of research that would analyze and historicize her cultural and artistic practice beyond individual works or individual disciplines. This omission speaks to the broader issue of marginalization within art history and its limited model for canonizing that might overlook cross-disciplinary practices. In considering Poznanovic's rich career, I found Eva Majewska's concept of the weak avant-garde introduced in her article Towards a Weak Avant-Garde Reshaping the Canon particularly inspiring. Majewska discusses alternative modes of art production and introduces the concept of the weak avant-garde as the one that deconstructs the hegemonic and masculine ideas of the art. This framework opens up space for artists who work in less conventional narratives, as Poznanović, whose practice spans different mediums and different roles. I see parallels with both Poznanovic's practice as a whole and with the two of her projects at Danube River. Following Kojic Mladenov's writing, quote, Bogdanka Poznanovic's entire action arts rested on communication. This can also, end of quote. This can also be observed from her own words in the interview. Quote, throughout my entire career, ever since I started painting, I have been interested in the process itself, to exit the traditional and limited spaces, but above all, I've been interested in communication on planetary coordinates. End of quote. Poznanovic's commitment to communication as a practice and the emphasis on the process over product might be recognized as one of the weak avant-garde strategies, where more subtle and everyday actions centered around fostering communication and connections are put at work to replace bold and disruptive gestures. Therefore, I suggest that Poznanovic's practice can be viewed as a weak avant-garde alternative for the, quote, patriarchal heroic strategies, end of quote, of making art, challenging dominant narratives through an emphasis on communication, connections, and everyday actions. In addition to her general interest in communication, I believe that the method of working with a river as a site of connections provides another aspect through which her practice can be connected to the weak avant-garde. I propose that Eva Majewska's concept of the weak avant-garde not only challenges the traditional, heroic, genius-centered model of the artist, but also aligns deeply with ecological approaches. By resisting binary constructs such as male, female, strong, weak, Majewska's framework provides a useful lens for understanding the feminist and environmental dimensions of Poznanovic's artistic practice. Reflecting upon feminist intervention in the canon, Majewska writes, quote, they are feminists not solely because feminist theorists and artists make them, but mainly because they stand up for what had been a feminist claim long before new avant-garde emerged. Namely, the demand to recognize reproductive labor, affect, weakness, receptiveness, care, and other elements undervalued in patriarchal culture can be read as feminist regardless of the author's declaration. End of quote. The values Majewska highlights, care and receptiveness, are also central to ecological thought. Just as the weak avant-garde rejects traditional power dynamics and celebrates subtlety and care, An ecological approach similarly prioritizes interdependence and communication rather than domination or extraction. Besides that, exiting the binarist view of strong versus weak or human versus nature is also central to feminist environmental struggles, where the focus shifts to reciprocal relationships with the environment, challenging patriarchal and capitalist models that promote hierarchy and exploitation. Therefore, connecting the concept of weakness with ecology confronts the value of strength and power, provides the acceptance of the limited control over non-human agents, and empowers the shift from domination to receptiveness, promoting the so-called practice of responsibility. Bogdanke Poznanović, in the interview with Šijački, mentions rivers and emphasizes the connecting capabilities of rivers, comparing them to bloodstream. This notion of flow and connection is central to understanding the role of the Danube River in Cube's rivers and rivers transmissions, and brings us to the last question. How might the method of working with the river help navigate the terrain that Majewska describes as between erasure, exclusion, and marginalization? Before continuing, it is important to mention that the decision to work with the river also needs to be read in the context of the neo-avant-garde tendencies to exit the four walls of enclosed art spaces, to intervene in the cities and natural environments, and merge art and life. Nevertheless, in the two mentioned works, one of the grounding premises for collaborating with water is perhaps focused on opening the works to other influences, inviting the river for its own uncontrollable flows. In Cube's rivers and rivers transmissions, water is more of a powerful symbol. Drawing from her own words on the significance of rivers, water is included in the performance as a connecting possibility, enabling and facilitating communication between distant lands and transcending human languages. By invoking the names of various rivers, Poznanović's intention may be interpreted as a desire to connect them all, creating a vast water body that would not be an obstacle or a border, but a unifying element. In an interview, she describes this project as, quote, water on water, end of quote. Additionally, the works do not seem to be situated in any of the Danube's specificities, such as water pollution or the Danube's importance for the culture of Novi Sad. This is also seen from the version at Geneva Lake, where she performed it on another different location and on a different body of water. Therefore, it could be said that the river is imagined as an abstract running body and an inspiration. While it is not treated as a resource, she is nevertheless using it more as a canvas than engaging with its complexities. Therefore, following Bailey Carter's terminology, the main imaginary of the Danube River is the imagery of the rivers as running or flowing. Oh, let's leave the Danube River still. So to sum up, Poznanović is working with water for its physical movements and metaphorical potentials. By including the river's rhythm, she allows the river to open up another path for communication and to create the space for a non-human agency whose main feature is transgression. This openness for non-human rhythm, the surrendering to another body, and the strengthening of the ties with the environment, in this case the river, and the intention to work with it signals an aspect of the artistic methodology that could be very well connected with the method of weakening one's own position and strategy to allow alternative modes of art production. In this sense, the notion of weak avant-garde offers a rich conceptual framework for exploring the intersection of feminist and environmental concerns in art, opening up new possibilities for understanding these practices without simply subsuming them into existing canons. Looking forward, this approach promises an exciting methodological direction for future research, especially in revisiting works that have been historically overlooked. By underlining the alternative modes of artistic production, it allows the analysis of connections that challenge dominant narratives, offering a more complex understanding of artistic practices and their both feminist and environmental aspects. Now, truly thank you.